Hello, welcome to part 59 of Clinical Physiotherapy MCQ series. Here we gon discuss day-to-day clinical scenario with detailed explanation. Now don't waste our time, let's move to question number 291. To stretch the neck muscles in a patient with an acute, right-sided torticollis, the most appropriate therapeutic exercise is Option A, right rotation and right lateral flexion. Option B, left rotation and right lateral flexion. Option C, left rotation and left lateral flexion. Option D, right rotation and left lateral flexion. And the answer is Option D, right rotation and left lateral flexion. Explanation for this question is, isolated contraction of the right sternocleidomastoid muscle would cause the head to rotate to the left and side bend, lateral flexion, to the right. To stretch the muscle, the opposite actions would be performed on the patient by the therapist. Rotation of the head to the right and lateral flexion to the left. Now let's move to question number 292. A patient is recovering from a myocardial infarction and presents to an outpatient physical therapy clinic for cardiac rehabilitation. Which of the following is an absolute indication to cease exercising? Option A, cyanosis. Option B, significant fatigue. Option C, RPE greater than 15 on the Borg scale. Option D, rise in systolic BP of 15 mm of mercury. And the answer is Option A, cyanosis. Explanation for this question is Option A, cyanosis indicates poor perfusion. Option B, fatigue is a normal response to exercise. Option C, RPE greater than 15 is a relative indication to stop. Option D, this is a normal response to exercise. Now let's move question number 293. A physical therapy plan of care for a newborn with Erb-Klump-Cabé palsy would not include Option A, age-appropriate movements of the upper extremity. Option B, gentle roam after immobilization. Option C, partial immobilization of limb across abdomen. Option D, splinting the shoulder in abduction and internal rotation. And the answer is Option D, splinting the shoulder in abduction and internal rotation. Explanation for this question is, splinting the shoulder in abduction leads to formation of abduction contractures and later hypermobility of the shoulder. Now let's move to question number 294. Which of the following signs or symptoms is most likely to be present in a patient with symptomatic hyperthyroidism? Option A, steppage gait. Option B, frequent calf cramping. Option C, tendinitis of the shoulder. Option D, atrophy of foot and hand intrinsics. And the answer is Option C, tendinitis of the shoulder. Explanation for this question is, hyperthyroidism is an excessive secretion of thyroid hormone. Chronic periarthritis can occur, often with calcification. This occurs most often in the shoulder. Atrophy of intrinsics and steppage gait would not be likely, because proximal muscles are affected, rather than distal muscles. Calf cramping is not a symptom of hyperthyroidism. Now let's move to question number 295. Upon examination, a physical therapist notes weakness in the dorsiflexors of a patient with peripheral neuropathy. Which type of gait abnormality is most likely present? Option A, antalgic gait. Option B, steppage gait. Option C, Trendelenburg gait. Option D, festinating gait. And the answer is Option B, steppage gait. Explanation for this question is Option B, it is characterized by the patient lifting the knee higher to compensate for a lack of dorsiflexion. Option A, this means a painful gait, which is primarily noted by decreased stance time on the painful leg. Option C, this is a gait where there is a contralateral hip drop during stance phase and is caused by weak hip abductors. Option D, this is a gait abnormality that is associated with Parkinsonism and is characterized by very small, rapid steps which appear progressively more unsteady. So, that's all for today. If you have any doubts, please comment below. I think you have learned something valuable today. See you on the next part, that's part 60. See you till then, bye bye.